Fantastic. Brand new day the Lord has given us. Welcome to the second hour of Jam 316 this beautiful Tuesday. Parenting Tuesday. Wazazi, we have a date as always. Kwa hivyo mvute stool ama muongeze sauti ya radio juu so that we can get into our conversation for today. Today we want to talk about co-parenting. Co-parenting has become a common thing today, but co-parenting comes with challenges. And what we want to do this morning is look at some of those challenges and try and figure out how do you solve some of these challenges today. Get to hang out with transformational coach Caroline Gaiduma. Caroline, how are you doing?
I'm fantastic.
Karibu sana, good to have you on the show again.
Asante, it's always a pleasure to be here.
So challenges of co-parenting. Hii co-parenting tunasikiaga siku hizi sana, inamaanisha nini? What is co-parenting?
Yeah, co-parenting is a situation where two people have a child and they are not together. So they are not married, they're not living together, but they have a child. And so they have to parent from the different lives that they are living. So that's co-parenting.
Ah, okay. But that comes with challenges. Oh, I think one of the things I've seen a lot is where one parent or even both parents are using the children to settle their scores.
Yeah.
I don't know what you would say about that. Because sometimes you separate, there's bitterness, or you never actually came together. You were in a relationship, the girl gets pregnant, the man decides. And so you have issues between the two of you, but now there's a child or there are children in between. And the children become the missiles you use against each other.
Yeah. I think it's because a lot of the times we have not resolved within ourselves and among ourselves what caused the split. So whether we were married or not, we had a relationship for us to get this child. And so there's unresolved issues between the two of us. And because in one way or another, we are not taking personal responsibilities for our lives and our experiences, then what happens is that we try to use the children to create leverage, either to hurt the other person or to try and get the other person to regret the decision to leave us, or to try and get the other person back into our lives. So sometimes it's children are the only leverage because maybe that's the only thing that's remaining between us, and we see how emotionally heavy this child is with the other person, and so we are like, okay, so I'll use them as leverage. Sometimes it's conscious, sometimes it's not conscious.
Okay, I'm just wondering, what does that do to the children?
One of the things that happens to children, and I see this even in adults who have grown up in that setting, the children get a sense of that I am not seen. I have not been. It's like I'm not my own person.
Yeah.
I am this weapon that they are using between them. I am this thing that they're throwing across, and I'm not seen, and I'm not my own person. So they grow up with a sense of either trying to look for attention or validation, or feelings of unworthiness because we are not interacting with them as them. We are interacting with them in relation to the other person.
That can be tough. And I'm just wondering, what does that do to them when they get to that place where now they're old enough to have their own relationships?
And what happens is, and I've worked with people for the last about 5 years who are going through stuff that started in that childhood. And by the way, this is not just a challenge of co-parenting. It's a challenge of parenting in general. When the child doesn't feel worthy, when the child doesn't feel seen, what happens is that emotional roller coaster they are going through as this is happening becomes like a pattern in their life. And so they continue to recreate these emotions in their adult life. So they get into relationship dynamics that create those feelings of unworthiness, of not being seen, of not being valued. And that's now the life they go living. And that's why these things are passed on from generation to generation.
Okay. We've had conversations about the whole aspect of deadbeat dads. Many times in situations like this, you find that the mother is the one who stays with the children, especially if the children are younger. the mother stays with the children. And, she basically doesn't have choices, so to speak. She has responsibilities she cannot ignore. And you find the man is out there doing his thing. For him, it seems like an option. If I have money, I'll help. If I don't have money, if I'm busy, I will not show up. If I don't have anything to do, I may show up. I don't know what you think about that scenario. And also, how does that now again affect the children?
Yeah, I mean, it happens mostly with men, but it doesn't mean it doesn't happen with women. But for men, it's because I get pregnant. I'm the one carrying the pregnancy.
Yeah.
Nothing has changed for you physically, and you can afford to walk and go and make this, convenient for you. You step in when it's convenient for you, just because of that natural aspect of you're not carrying anything in your body. But for the woman, she carries the child. There's that connection that happens. And also there's this physical being that is now here. I can't just leave them on the street.
Yeah.
So to an extent, it's like I have no choice. I have to take care of this child. Now, when it comes to parenting, for women it's mostly obligatory because of nature and how it is. But for men, it's a choice.
Yes.
And sometimes they are not thinking in terms of the impact to the child. They're not even thinking about the impact to their lives, because I've seen people in their old age regretting their choice. But then for a man in that particular moment, he's thinking about, to what extent am I being inconvenienced?
Yeah. Yeah.
And because it's not something that is tangibly there and they can be obligated to, they make that choice. And sometimes it's just because they are not emotionally mature. Sometimes it's because their focus is on themselves and not the other people involved. And it has a huge impact on the child, because there's a reason why a child is born by a man and a woman.
Yeah.
Because they have very critical roles to play in the child's life. So the father teaches the child how to create their identity. They give them a sense of belonging. So if the child does not have that in their life, that's the impact. They'll never feel like they belong. They'll never have a strong sense of identity because the man was not there to help them do that. So that's the huge impact that the children suffer as a result of that.
Okay. What about the whole issue of sometimes, laying guilt on the children, because it's almost like you're forcing them to choose, especially if it's a situation where you separate or you get a divorce, and it's like, the children almost have to choose which direction they will go. And it's almost like if they go with their dad, the mom feels bad because are you communicating you love your father more than you love me? If they stay with the mother, the father feels the same way. So I don't know how do you get past that challenge?
I think it is to separate the two relationships.
Okay.
You're having a relationship with your child and recognizing that this child needs the other partner, whether it's the woman or the man, that the child is, there's a need for the child to have a relationship with your former partner.
Yeah.
And then there's this relationship between me and him that is very separate. Most of the time we don't separate the two.
Yeah.
And we sort of like are very mixed up. And the main reason for that is because we ourselves are children who have gone through the same. And so we don't know how we don't know how to separate issues, because even in this relationship, we got into it because of our unmet needs. So maybe your father was never there.
Yeah.
So you found a man to try and rectify what your father didn't do. And now this has broken and you're frustrated. So you're not acting as an adult, you're acting as a child who has this unmet need. And so your children become like your siblings. And so you're competing for the attention of this one person. And when they get it and you don't, then you have some, beef with them.
Yeah.
So it's good to separate. And I tell people that if you want to be a good parent, whether you're in a relationship or not, you have to go for coaching or therapy so that you understand what is the subconscious process happening with you, so that you're able to remove yourself from this entanglement and give your children the childhood that they deserve.
But how do you help children to cope, especially if it's a situation of divorce or separation? Because these children are used to having the both of you within the same roof, but now you're living in separate domains. They have to keep visiting this one and coming back to this one. How do you help children manage that? Because sometimes I feel like we focus so much on the parents, and the parents focus so much on themselves, and they're tearing away or tearing apart from each other, but they never think about what the children are going through. It's like the children just move on with life. So how do you help the children to cope with this new scenario that has become the reality you have to live with?
I think the first thing is to understand what are their needs. I think we are very much in touch of the children's physical needs, financial needs, that we are not aware of what their emotional needs are. And I keep saying that children don't necessarily need you guys to be under the same roof. That's not the need of a child. The child needs to feel safe. The child needs to feel accepted. The child needs to feel loved. And if you focus on those needs, that even when you're living in separate places, even if you're in separate countries, you will focus on how can I meet the needs of this child to feel safe, to feel loved, to feel accepted. Because once you understand that those are the critical needs of a child, then you can work around your specific dynamic and your lifestyle to get their needs met. And when their needs are met, they will be fine. They'll be okay. It doesn't matter what dynamic is there between you two, but as long as their needs are met, they will be fine.
Okay. I'm just wondering, is there a stigma associated with co-parenting from the child's perspective?
Yes, there is, because there's this notion that, I don't know if it has changed in schools, that family is mother, father, and child. And so we find that there is a sense of I am not enough if that is not my dynamic. And there is also, and it comes from the adults, they make it look like there is a wrong family setup. And so when they teach their children that there's a wrong family setup, or they don't educate their children on the different family setups, when the children go to school, they go to play out in the field, they look at the different dynamic their friends have for their family, and they make fun of them, or they, they set them apart for it. So, and kids, by the way, can be very hostile. Out in the field, it can be nasty. And so when your friends are telling you there's something wrong with how your family is set up, it affects you greatly, because then you can't integrate. You don't feel like you belong with that group of friends. You feel like there's something wrong with you, and that is very damaging.
Wow. Okay. We'll look at the issue of financial support, because that's also another major issue. Tumeona watu wakipelekana kotini and things like that, so we'll talk about that shortly. It is Parenting Tuesday. We are talking about the challenges of co-parenting. If you have a thought or a question, 20316 is the SMS line, and the WhatsApp number is 0786 316 316. We are on Parenting Tuesday. We are talking about the challenges of co-parenting. We are hanging out with transformational coach Caroline Gaiduma. Like always, questions on 20316, WhatsApp on 0786 316 316. Caroline, let's talk about mambo ya pesa, financial support. Man, this one becomes a challenge. And I want us to look at it from two perspectives. There's the perspective where probably the lady is left with the children, and she's not able to meet their financial needs as she would like to, and so the man has to chip in. But the man has to be reminded, the man is dragging himself. So that's question number one, how do you handle that? And then the other scenario would be where one of the parents is not well off, and so when the children visit the parent who's well off, life there seems to be better than where they're used to. How do you bring a balance in that situation? So let's talk about where, first of all, the especially if it's the lady who's remained with the kids, the guy is refusing to pay child support, yet he has money. How do you navigate through that?
What I would tell the ladies is, if at all you have healed from this and you're focusing on the children, the first thing is, no matter what happens, you are responsible for your children.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing that you need to understand and internalize and actually own and say, these children are my responsibility. So I'm going to do whatever is within my power to give them what they need.
Yeah.
Because if you're not in that space, you will begin to feel as if there is somebody else who needs to come in. And when they don't come in, then you have resentment and anger, and you have certain reactions to that. So first and foremost, take full responsibility, so that even when they come through, it's like a bonus, you know, like that bonus that people get in December.
Yeah.
You're happy, you're grateful. Yeah. And again, there's this aspect of the two people who get the child are responsible, even legally, for that child.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's about being in that space, but also holding the other person accountable. So if you are in this child's life, you have taken part in creating this child, you are financially obligated to meet their needs. So I will look at it from the perspective of, to what extent are you able? That's one thing. To what extent are you able? Number two, to what extent are you willing? Because if you're willing, then that's a different thing. If you're not willing, and to a certain extent, I am not able to meet the basic needs, then I need to stand for my children and use legal means to compel you to take care of them. So there's that aspect of, once you have taken responsibility, then you can be rational and objective. You're not emotional.
Yeah.
But when you don't take that up, then you start using the children again, using the financial situation to manipulate. And most of the men, I must say, sense that. And sometimes that's why they are on and off. They can sense there's a little bit of manipulation.
Yeah.
And even what they're responsible for, they withdraw it. It's like they're on the defense. They're blocking your attacks. And the way to block your attacks is, I won't pick your calls. I won't pay when I'm supposed to pay. I won't show up when I'm supposed to show up.
Yeah.
Because now it has become this power game.
Okay. You know, the other thing I'm seeing a lot of nowadays is the whole issue of having to confirm that this is really my child. Back in the day when we were growing up, if you're in a relationship with a lady and she gets a child, it's your child, wachana mambo mengi. But today people are saying they have to go for a DNA test, I have to confirm. And sometimes that becomes the basis of why this person is denying any kind of financial support or even emotional support until they know for sure that that child is theirs. How do you navigate? How do you deal with that?
Because sometimes that's a trust issue, and the situations I've seen that happening most of the time is when somebody, so there was issues before. There was trust issues before, there was infidelity before, or there's that scenario that happens to most people where they're not married, but they're in a relationship, and then they break up, and then the lady realizes after they've broken up that she's pregnant. Yeah, that happens a lot. And the guy is like, no, I'm not sure. Maybe there was something that was happening after we broke up. And so what I say is, as a man, and this is to the men, as long as you're in a relationship and you're intimate with someone, have that conversation within yourself. What if this happens? Am I ready to take responsibility? Have that conversation before, because this is your seed. This is you multiplying yourself. Do you want to be responsible for bringing somebody onto this planet and you're not ready to take responsibility? So I think remove the issue of the woman and just think about this innocent child and make decisions from that perspective, because most of the time the men are making decisions based on their relationship with the woman, not based on the child and their livelihood. Yeah.
What about the other scenario we had painted earlier where, you're co-parenting, but one is so well able financed, their financial status is higher than the other spouse. And so when the kids come visiting on this side, man, the transformation is unbelievable from where they stay to how they do life as compared to this side. And the kids want to lean more on this side because huku maisha landa huku kwingine, my friend, things are thick, life is hard. We have to believe God for even the salt on the table. So as parents, how do you reach a compromise so that, because at the end of the day, it's about the kids. What do you do?
Exactly. I think at this point, parents need to be very, focused on the children, and they need to be very present because this is life, and you can't change your lifestyle. Yeah. Because either you don't have or you have to be you. So the thing is, don't invalidate the children's experience. Let the children have the experience they are having. Let them enjoy when they go to if you're the one who's not doing so well, let them enjoy without guilt, wherever it is that they are going. Yeah. Talk about it. What did you love about it? When they come to your place, if you're the one who's not doing so well, allow them to be content. Tell them this is the nature of life. Even your own life, some days you have, some days you will not have, and that's okay. If you're the one who is rich, don't make them feel less, or make them feel like they are not supposed to be where they are when they are with the parent who has less. So the whole point is validate their experience, and also relate it with their life, because this is a very good teaching opportunity to get them to learn how to be content no matter where life takes them. But most importantly, remember what their real needs are. Their real needs are not just physical. Their real needs are acceptance, approval, love, and give them those. Prioritize that, whether you have or you don't have. Let them see that the priority is that I accept you, that I love you, that I approve you.
I once was reading, it's one of these help columns, and this lady was asking a question and saying, co-parenting situation, but I feel like the father to my children tries to overcompensate because the children are mostly with me. They visit him. We have arranged visits. And every time they visit, he spoils them with expensive gifts that I cannot afford. And I feel like he's trying to overcompensate for the fact that he maybe sees the children once ever so often. He's not there for them emotionally. He's not there for them in their everyday life. And so when he gets the opportunity to be with them, it's just the good stuff, which is in turn spoiling the children. Because every time now the mom wants to be hard on them or denies them something, the thing that comes up is dad would buy it for us. How do you deal with that?
It's one, there are two angles to this. One is the perception, how you are perceiving this. And that's what influences your reaction and how you feel and how you treat him and how you treat them. Because if you have this perception and it's a negative perception, then you're going to think it's about you. You see, and that's the challenge for many co-parents, that anything the other parent does, you see it as if it's you. They are communicating something to you. And sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's true that they are overcompensating. But remember, sometimes there's a lot of guilt that comes with co-parenting. I could have done this. I should do this. And so we need to see each other from that perspective, that it's true. He might be overcompensating, but it's because he doesn't know how to do what he's supposed to do in this setting, And so it's not about you. It's about his struggles and what he's trying to do with his internal, experience. So first of all, don't make it about you. Just see him as a person who is also hurting, who also has, guilt and all that, and trying to make up. what you can do is work within your boundaries. What is your sphere of influence? What are the boundaries with your children around what they can do and what they can have? Focus on that. Don't try and project and say, these children are like this now because of you, and try to get into his experience and change it. No, focus on your life. What do you want for your children? What boundaries are you creating for them? If your communication channels are open, maybe talk to him and tell him, this is what's happening when they come home. And I feel this is the impact that it's going to have on them. Maybe go slow on this or go slow on that. Communication is very important for co-parents.
Okay. What about values? Because there's a high chance that both of you may not have the same values. In fact, if you went different ways, one of the things is probably because your values were so different. And so maybe you're on this side, you're trying to bring up your children in a godly manner. You take them to church. You know, there are some things that you don't allow them to do at home. When they go visit, whether it is their dad or their mom, who can be carefree? They can do anything. They can watch anything. You know, they do all sorts of things that you wouldn't necessarily allow them to do when they're with you. So when there's that conflict of values, do you hold back the children until you agree on the values, or how do you navigate through that?
Well, so the first thing is to understand what your boundaries are. What is within you to control.
Okay.
Once you know that, then within your space you can create a system where they learn so much about, because it's about strength. Even when people are parenting together, kids are still going out and learning things from other people. But where is it more grounded? So if you can ground your children more, they will learn how to make decisions for themselves, even as young as they are. They will decide, no, I don't like this, I like this. And that's what you need to teach your children, to learn for themselves, to learn for themselves how to choose their values. But if it goes into a place where the children are getting harmed, either emotionally or mentally by whatever exposure is happening in the other home, then you have to bring in some legal aspect, maybe get a mediator if you don't want to go directly to block the other person to accessing the children. Start with a mediator and have this conversation if you can't talk face to face or between the two of you.
Okay. I have several other questions I want us to talk about. We'll talk about them shortly. One of them is discipline. Discipline is also an issue that sometimes becomes a challenge when you're co-parenting, because if you haven't agreed on what to discipline and how to discipline, then it can become a major issue. So we'll talk about that shortly. We are talking about challenges of co-parenting on Parenting Tuesday today. If you have any thoughts or questions, 20316 for SMS, WhatsApp 0786 316. We're hanging out with transformation coach Caroline Gaiduma. And interesting scenarios here. Quite a challenge that many parents are facing today. Caroline, I was thinking about discipline, and a couple of weeks ago, I can't remember exactly what we were discussing on this show. Somebody sent in an SMS, and they were in a co-parenting situation, and this was their dilemma, that when the father of the children comes and picks the children, he takes them to his place, but then he goes. And so he leaves them with his wife. And it is the wife who ends up disciplining the children if anything happens. And so by the time the children are coming back to their mother, of course they don't have good stories. Because the story is, huyo bibi yake anatuchapanga sana. So yeah, when it comes to discipline, I'm just wondering, how should the matter of discipline be handled in a co-parenting situation?
Wow, that's a big one, because again, we are looking at the children and the experience they are having. And one of the things I've noticed is that children in co-parenting arrangements also sense the disconnect. And so, because they want to matter, and by the way, kids are developing their sense of self, and so they're testing boundaries.
Yeah.
Because it's like, if I know where your boundaries reach, I'll know where mine start.
Exactly.
So that's what the kids are doing. And so they are testing boundaries, and when they see a gap, they are going to try and get with as much as, get away with as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that they do is that sometimes they can pit you against each other.
Yeah.
Because they want either extra attention or affection from one person, or they want to create a sense of, basically it's mostly around attention. And so when you don't fill those gaps, sometimes even the kids can make you have very negative dynamics between you.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's your responsibility to fill the gaps. And one of the things that people need to discuss is, how do we discipline these children?
Yeah.
Yeah, because if one parent is into physical discipline, like I'm going to use the rod, and the other one is let's talk or time out, there is going to be a disconnect. The children will start thinking this one is bad and worse than the other one.
Yeah.
The other thing is, when there are other people involved, whether the lady has a husband or the man has a wife, to what extent are these now new people allowed to discipline the children, and how? If that discussion is not had, those are the gaps that happen.
Okay.
And when the children go there and they are disciplined, it might be that it was something genuine. Like if somebody is breaking things, or, like they've really overstepped and they are disciplined, of course the child won't come and tell you, oh, I did wrong. They'll just come and tell you, she disciplined me, she hit me.
Yeah.
Or she put me on timeout, or she denied me TV or whatever. And because you are also dealing with your own issues that you haven't resolved, obviously you will take it in a negative way. But what I tell people is, first, within your own space, create that strong discipline with your children, so that when they go out there, wherever it is that they are going, whether it's to your parents or to your sisters, or to other, people they've gone for sleepovers, they have that sense of discipline within themselves. Secondly, have the conversation about respect. Teach your children to respect people, whether they are your ex-husband or ex-wife spouse, or whether they are strangers. Teach your children to respect people, so that even when they are coming to tell you about something that has happened there, they're not speaking from a place of like we are equals. They're also speaking from a place of respect. They have respect for this person. They're just letting you know something happened. Because sometimes we are the ones who teach children to disrespect people.
Right.
And so we don't even have boundaries about the conversations we can have with our children about other people. And so you need to check yourself in all those areas. But most importantly, what is within your power is what you can do. If there's abuse and your child comes with an injury or something like that, don't hesitate to go the legal way, because you are supposed to protect your children, even protecting your children from each other.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah.
Very true. In fact, that one of protecting your children from each other, I once saw a cartoon, and this lady was screaming to her husband, and she was saying, honey, your children and my children are beating our children. So the man had come with children, the woman had children, they came together, and now they got children. And I'm just wondering, as we focus on the parents, what about the children? When you're in that situation where you came with a child, you got married to somebody else, and now you have children of your own, the two of you, and this child is still there. This child has another father or another mother on the other end. How do you help these children to be able to fit in together, so that they don't feel like they're the black sheep in the family? They don't feel like they are the one who is there, but they were not really supposed to be there.
Yeah. I mean, it's like the issue of blending families is really about blending. And it's about having real conversations.
Yes.
It's about, because sometimes we blend families, but we don't have the conversations that validate our experiences.
Yes.
So it's having a conversation about, yes, we might not be from the same biological parent, but now we are in this family setup, and now we are a family.
Yes.
Now there is no you are from here or you are from here or you are all now our children. Because as long as there's that perspective of these ones are mine and these ones are yours, then there's never going to be a blending. You have to have that conversation and be very proactive about blending, about making everybody feel that now we are one. We belong to each other, because then that is where the foundation is made. And we belong to each other doesn't have to be biological. And you can look at what makes us belong to each other. And let's focus on those things that bring us together. And so there are some things that need to be equalized, like discipline. When we are disciplining our children, let all of them feel that you have treated me the same as everyone else. So the basis of a family is the couple that is making this family.
Very true.
So you both have to have a conversation about, do you feel like my kids are now your kids? What are the gaps? What would make you feel like you actually are the father or the mother of these children? And what is the dynamic in our relationship that can support that? Because sometimes it's about people don't come together, and it's about maybe finances. Maybe it's about relations with other families. So it's like, I came with my children, so my children have a deeper relationship with my parents than your children. And so something like that can make the other kids feel like we don't belong, because maybe I'm not taking you to my parents, all of you. I'm just taking my own kids. Or we are having conversations that exclude them. So you have to be very, 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 intentional about that. But it starts with you as an individual in your mind. Are you integrating these children in yourself as your children?
Okay. How do you deal with nosy relatives? There are those relatives who are just nosy. Wanapenda tu kusengenya. And sometimes they would be the ones who would say things to destabilize these children or to create a perception that they were never wanted in the first place. How do you protect your children from such negative conversations from their relatives?
What I say is that your life is a high-profile event, and there needs to be a register at the entrance, and everybody who comes in has to abide by certain standards. Anybody who has access to your time and energy has to step into your life in a certain way, and you're the gatekeeper of that. And if somebody is disrespecting you via your children, then I don't think that is a healthy person to expose your children to. And sometimes we are exposing ourselves to toxic dynamics because we are trying to prove a point, either consciously or unconsciously. You keep certain familial relationships because you also have unmet needs. And so you keep, and you don't look at the children as self-determining autonomous beings who are having their own experience. So the thing is to be very conscious about how people treat you in relation to this co-parenting dynamic that you're having, what they say in your presence, how they treat your children, and either bring them, have conversations with them or exclude them. You don't have to, you can meet in family gatherings, but you don't have to drag your children and put them in their houses just because they are relatives.
Okay. What about, as we near the end of the conversation, what about a situation where one parent is not consistent, and so it begins to affect the children? He's supposed to come, or she's supposed to come, pick them up on a Saturday. They are no-show. They always have an excuse. So it's like you get the kids to a place where they're so excited, and then you disappoint them. And it becomes like a consistent thing they do. What do you do? Do you deny? Do you just tell them, until you get your act together, I'm not giving you access to the children? Or how do you solve that issue? Because now it's beginning to affect the children. They're growing up knowing, our dad is just like that. Promises mingi, lakini delivery, nil by mouth.
And it really affects them because they learn, anything that the child learns in the family setting, they internalize that as how the world is.
Yes.
And that affects how they relate with other people, even in their adulthood. There are people who have a lot of trust issues who are probably disappointed first and foremost by their parents. So they couldn't trust their parents. And so they think everybody cannot be trusted. And so what I say is, I mean, at some point you have to put your foot down. And this is the issue I was saying, protecting your children from each other.
Yes.
If you understand the damage that it's causing, then you have to put your foot down and say, if you cannot show up like this, if you cannot keep to your promises, then we have to come to a place where we decide. So can you step out of their life until they are 18 and they are able to process this and rationalize this in an objective way, or you change your ways. And sometimes you have to get, again, legal action. Either have a mediator or a lawyer and draw up something that compels people to be consistent, because it's not parenting if it's not consistent, by the way.
Yeah.
It's not parenting if it's not consistent.
What about a jealous spouse, Caroline? Where you have a jealous spouse, both of you moved your different ways. Let me use the man as an example. The man got married, and so he has a family he's raising up. But now you had a child with this man, and anytime you try and make arrangements or communicate on behalf of the child so that the man can have a life and an influence in the lives of this child, their spouse is always jealous. So their spouse is always causing drama. Yeah, they don't want you to be in touch with this man.
Yeah.
Call me.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you anything about call me, don't call him, because they're insecure that since something was brewing here before, there might be a chance that this relationship can resurrect. How do you deal with that?
My goodness, co-parents need to understand that they are the parents first and foremost. Like, your partner is not your child's parent. And so they are not supposed to be in this conversation. So if you come and tell me your spouse is jealous, my question is not about your spouse. My question is about you. So what is your decision? Yeah, because a lot of people avoid to make decisions because they bring in this scapegoat. Oh, my spouse is saying, yet somewhere within themselves, they don't want to be consistent. So they're using their spouse as an excuse, because if you really wanted to be in your child's life, then there's a conversation you'd have with your spouse about this. So go and deal with your relationship dynamic. But when we are here, we are talking about the children and your presence in the children's life. And if that dynamic is affecting your presence, then you need to make a decision. So are you in or are you out? Yeah.
Wow.
I've had such an experience, where somebody comes and says, oh, okay, my girlfriend or my fiance is saying this and this and this. And the conversation is, so what are you deciding as a result of that? Yeah. And if you don't want to let her down, you don't want to let him down, then my decision, because of my children, is you go figure yourselves out. I do not want an inconsistent co-parent. And so you go figure yourself out, because you can't be in and out of this child's life the way you want. Yeah. And the decision was, you will see you at age 18. Because at age 18, the child can decide for themselves what to think. Because right now, when you're in and out, they internalize it and think, it is me. I am not worthy. I am not deserving. And as a parent, I can't undo that.
Very true.
And if I expose the child to that, then it's on me.
Wow.
So there are very tough decisions that need to be made.
Yes.
And you need to remove yourself from this relationship dynamic and focus on the children. And you also need to be very stable and grounded and centered within yourself, and be sure about what this is about. What is this about? If it's not about the children, then you're on the wrong path.
Very true. Wow. I wish we had more time to continue exploring this conversation, because I still had quite a number of questions I wanted to ask you. But maybe God will give us another time to be able to pick up this conversation again. Caroline, thank you so much for agreeing to be part of this discussion. Ubarikiwe sana.
Thank you so much for having me. I love it. I love these discussions, and I'm very grateful.
Well, our time is up for today. Thank you so much for being a part of Parenting Tuesday. I hope this conversation has been enriching to you. Until next week, if God allows us to have another time together, have yourselves a great day.
Thank you for watching. Remember,
subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you can get notified whenever we upload new fresh content every day. Stay tuned and enjoy fresh, uplifting content.